Bonjour, KBIC. It is time for the monthly update from the President's Office, and today here with me is our Chief Judge, Violet Friisvall Ayres, and we're all aware of what has went on in the court system. And in order to understand what had happened and how our new Chief Judge came to be, we need to look at our Constitution. And in the Constitution, in August 10th, 2018, we created a separate branch called the judicial branch of our government. And in there is a criteria that oversees the judicial area of our tribe. And one of the parts that had to be dealt with in it was if perchance that a judge, while serving their tenure, dies or is removed, resigns, or is permanently incapacitated and unable to carry out their job as a judge. And we're all well aware that we did lose our Chief Judge. Chief Judge John Drew has traveled on, and we now have, according to the Constitution, our Associate Judge then became the Chief Judge, which is now our Chief Judge, Violet Friisvall Ayres. We will be appointing a associate judge per the Constitution. We have put the ads out for the associate judge appointment, and if anybody's interested in it, I'm just going to read verbatim basically what you do if you're interested in serving in the area of the judicial branch of our tribe. And that is to submit a letter of intent to describe your qualifications for the position to the Secretary of the Tribal Council. Secretary of the Tribal Council is Liz Julio, and she works up at the Keweenaw Center. She's also serves in the capacity as the Education Director, so you could actually go up there and give it to her, or you could bring your letter of intent down to the Tribal Center, and they'll get that up to her also. And you'll have to complete a criminal security background form. Now, we open this up March 22nd, and the deadline for submission is Wednesday, April 5th, 4 p.m. And what is it that you have to become a judge? You have to be an enrolled member of the KBIC. You have to physically reside within the territories, and it can be either Baraga or Ziba, 25 years of age. You must have a high school diploma, and you must complete a security background check. No person can serve as an associate judge within 5 years after completion of a sentence or probation upon being convicted of a felony or crime of fraud unless such conviction has been vacated or overturned. That's a little different than what it is for tribal council. To be a judge, you must have a security background clearance. No person will serve as an associate judge who is presently a council member or running to become a tribal council member. And at this time, I'd just like to turn this over to our new chief judge. And kind of, Your Honor, how long have you been a judge?
As of February 2nd, I think it was, I've been a judge for 23 years.
And do you just want to kind of give your perspectives on being a judge?
Sure. So I was asked to join Madam President this morning to talk about, what's going on here at the court as far as this process that the tribe has regarding appointment. And she wanted to ask me specifically to talk about those characteristics and the things that I had thought. So first of all, I think that if you are interested in putting your letter of intent in, that you should consider looking at our laws. You should read the Constitution and familiarize yourself with those documents. To be a judge, I think you need to have good common sense. You should understand our culture and our traditions. You should understand our traditional law and what that entails. I also believe that a good understanding of judicial process and court process would also be helpful to you. Strong writing skills. That's very important. Strong communication skills, the ability to organize complex fact scenarios and apply policy or law to those fact scenarios to come to a conclusion, of course, is absolutely necessary. Empathy and strength. Good doses of both of those would also be a good quality to have to be a judge.
Okay, miigwech for that. And when you're looking at applying to be a judge, what areas or what are you dealing with? What different areas?
Thanks. So tribal courts are courts of general jurisdiction, and we deal with all of the things that state court, district courts, and circuit courts deal with. So being a tribal judge, you are dealing with criminal issues, you're dealing with probate issues that could encompass, juvenile delinquency, it can be child protective service issues, foster care, adoption, marriage, divorce, eviction, traffic issues. There's a whole gamut of things that we do here at tribal court. So a day here as a judge, you might start out in the morning with a court hearing regarding a sentencing in a criminal case, and then you have to shift gears because your next hearing is an eviction. And then after that, you might have a child custody issue. After that, you might have a writ of replevin that you have to hear. After that, you might even have another criminal trial. So it's constant shifting of different law, different areas of law, different standards of proof. So those are all things that you, if you're interested in being a tribal judge, will need to learn or familiarize yourself with. I definitely learn that you need to know these things and to be a tribal judge.
And is being a judge an 8 to 4:30 job?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not. Thank you for bringing that up. So, excuse me, I'm going to have a drink of water. So, being a judge is not an 8 to 4:30 job. 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you are a judge. And by that, I mean you don't come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and then leave at 4:30 and that's it for you for the day. Your days might consist, if you're lucky, your days might consist of that. But oftentimes, we are required to work much longer hours than that, especially if you have a heavy caseload. I do a lot of my writing at night because it's quieter at my home, because here there's constant, in and out of my office, people wanting, to talk with me, my staff, or other agencies about different things. You will have tribal police call you in the middle of the night, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, asking perhaps for a search warrant. Maybe they've removed a child. You'll have social services calling you all hours of the evening, the day, holidays, for really emergent type issues. We've had court here. I've had court many times on holidays, Christmas Day, Easter, times where we've been closed in snowstorms. Being a judge is a 24-hour job.
Okay, thank you. And then when we're looking at areas of justice and different forms of court, the court also has a drug court and has begun to implement a peacemaking court.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit on that?
Sure. So back when I've sat with two chief judges, Judge Dakota and Judge Jandro. When Judge Dakota was sitting the bench, we had noticed, him and I, a huge influx of trespassing and larceny type cases. And it was kind of odd for us, and we began looking at that and realized that, when people were coming through court, that these cases that we were getting that had nothing to do with controlled substances, the reason why people were doing these things were because of substance abuse issues. And of course, there was an increase in other types of crimes as well at that time. we began speaking with, we have a lot of services here in KBIC that deal with, substance abuse, mental health, things like that. And we began talking with these other agencies and offices and realized that there was, a gap in some services. Our probation, we saw a lot of recidivism. That was another one of the reasons. So Judge Dakota and this is one of his specific projects that he worked on, and that he created the drug court. I just assisted him when he asked me to do different things. Created the Healing to Wellness Court. We had originally called it Drug Court. We thought that wasn't appropriate, so we changed the name to the Healing to Wellness Court because it's really about healing. It is an alternative to probation. When we have these cases where we're getting, people who are addicted to substances, lately it's been a lot of meth cases. Traditional probation services don't work with people because they continue to violate the terms and conditions of their probation because they are addicted. So the drug court, people will come into drug court. It's an intensive program, and we've had a lot of success with that. Still to this day, I look out in the community and I see a lot of these citizens who have gone through this program, and they're doing really well. We've had, some cases where we've had people come back and they've gone through it again. Everybody is different. Everybody's different. So sometimes, it takes a little bit more for some people to help themselves, but it's possible, definitely possible.
And then the peacemaking court is just something that was being formed by Judge Dondrew. If you could touch just on that.
Certainly. So again, when I was sitting with Judge Dakota initially, we had talked about peacemaking and looking at the different elements of that. But because him and I were working on, because these projects are not like, oh, let's do this and then it just happen. They require lots of time and work and effort and coordinating and finding funding and different things, and making it so that our programs are sustainable. That's a big deal. It's fine to create something, but can you sustain it? And so we had started talking about some of those things, and then when Judge Jondros became on the bench, one of the initial things that he had done was he had, come in and he had asked me, he said, what would you like to see here? What are you working on? What would you like to see happen? And we had a long conversation about that. And one of those things was incorporating more traditional elements of dispute resolution into our court system. We do that, from the bench when we're sentencing. All the, both judges I've sat with, myself, look holistically at the person. Traditionally that's what you do. So we noticed that there were places throughout the country that had peacemaking courts. So Judge Jondro took the helm with that, started looking at some of that. We looked at peacemaking center downstate and had a couple of meetings here and had decided, because I had mentioned to him, I said, I said, we have a traditional Anishinabe peacemakers. I said, I know one personally that I met as a young judge when I first came to the bench. I think we should try to find him, and that was Ernie St. Germain. He's very well respected throughout the Anishinabe community, and respected as a judge and a peacemaker throughout Indian country. So we began speaking with him, and what you've seen with the peacemaking circles is what has come about from that. And actually, we had our first peacekeeping session in court recently within the last month, where Judge St. Germain had come and sat down with a couple of clients and had done a peacemaking session that Judge Jondro and I had sat in to observe, because we were learning this process and how to do that. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay, thank you. That's just tribal court, just kind of a synopsis in a nutshell. on the many goings on in tribal court. And once again, I would encourage anybody who's interested in this type of work and what it encompasses with a judge. You've heard what you have to do, what, kind of skills that you should possess. And if you're interested in this, by all means, put in your letter of interest to our tribal secretary, Liz Julio. How this is going to go, well, we're going to keep this open for 2 weeks. We have to have a judge appointed in 30 days. So council will decide the date and time for hearing, and Chief Judge Friisvall will sit in on it also, and we'll kind of go from there. We never thought we'd have to do this, but this is something that Chief Judge John Drew would, like to see all the work, continue that he's done, and the work that this court has done over the decades. So lots of good work being done here. And with that, I think this will be the update for today. Miigwech.